And so now I can just upload the defendant's answer in my petition, and within about 10 minutes, I can have, an agreed motion for entry of a DCO and a notice of hearing, and also a draft of the docket control order, so that when the defendants answer in the case, I ask them for their trial date availability. Then I ask co-work through this skill to just create one for me. Obviously, I can edit it, fine tune the deadlines in there, but it's a lot faster than asking for me starting from scratch, right? Now I'm getting 12 to 15 documents a day to review from my assistants, because they're able to just crush these tasks, right? And so they love it.
I'm here with Jacob Cukjati. That's a Slovenian last name, right?
That's right.
You're so a PI attorney out of San Antonio, Texas.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm a trial attorney in San Antonio, Texas, born and raised, and I was glad to have met you, Masai, when I did. Man, it really helped our firm.
Yeah. So we've been able to do some really cool stuff with Claude, and with Claude, with building sort of a HIPAA compliant portal as well. And I think it's been really cool because you jumped onto it, right? And you've been able to figure out sort of what you wanted Claude to do, build your own skills and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe you can tell us a bit about the firm, what your interest was with AI in the beginning, and what you've been able to do so far.
Sure. Yeah. So, I had a friend, we were getting ready for a trial in a rural county here in Texas. And, before trial, he was showing us how he was able to create these bench trial briefs really fast, on certain evidentiary issues. And he was using Claude Cowork, and I was fascinated by it. But I didn't know the first thing, about Claude Cowork. I was using Claude probably the way most people are using ChatGPT, just the chat version. And I had kind of done some of my own research and stumbled on your YouTube page. And I really loved that, you had been offering, Claude Cowork training to lawyers. And so what I was looking for, for my small firm of, a couple paralegals, a couple attorneys of counsel, was how can we get more efficient with doc generation, being able to spit out, standard motions, pleadings, and then, being able to cut the time down to prepare a lot of our, what we call Stowers demands or bad faith demands. And, you helped me build out these Claude Cowork skills, which is really awesome. And once I got the hang of it, I started creating my own that really helped with our workflows. And, the other component was finding a way to have medical records summarized, but that also, didn't have Claude, getting any sort of protected health information or violating any sort of HIPAA. Because as a small firm, we weren't able to pay for a business association agreement that's HIPAA compliant with Claude, which, they're marketing for the 50 employees or more, 20 employees or more. And so he found us an awesome solution on this platform called Vercel. And, maybe you can tell them a little bit more about how it allows us to comply with HIPAA. And I'm happy to show a demo today.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool to go through through some of the skills, show the medical record portal as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can definitely do that, and then maybe as we show it, I can sort of walk through that.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking now about a couple of things about just your experience with Claude so far, and what was your initial interest in AI? What made you want to start learning about it, start using it in your practice?
Yeah, I think as lawyers, we're always trying to find ways to be more efficient.
Yeah.
I've got 4 under 3 right now at home, and so I've got limited work hours as it is, and any way that I can help cut down some of the tedious time it takes to prepare standard motions, discovery. I always want to find the latest cutting edge technology, and Claude is just, it's such a beast, that you really, I think, how do you eat an elephant, right? It's one bite at a time. There's going to be a lot of different opinions about how to best utilize it. Our firm was on FileVine, and so one of the limitations we had is that FileVine doesn't allow Claude to really integrate super well. And so, we're using Claude Cowork the most. And what I was describing earlier is just being able to generate motions quickly, taking a pleading and then creating a whole workflow. And so that's really where I was, interested in learning. And I think, it's part of our competence as attorneys is we've got to learn, the latest technology and how it can help our clients move their cases quicker.
What's your advice, I guess, to other attorneys in starting to use Claude or starting to use AI? What direction would you advise them to go in?
Well, I would say to first reach out to you, man, because you can kind of break it down from a 30,000 foot view to figure out what their needs are. I know a lot of attorneys want to use Claude Cowork for intakes. They want to use it for creating dashboards. For my need, we have our own intake process. We're very referral heavy. And so obviously that, requires that I look at everything before we, send emails. I don't want AI doing things without permission on that front. But when it comes to doc generation, I think the best way to start is to download the desktop version of Claude Cowork and then hop on a call with you and just start getting on your YouTube channel and really, start asking the right questions is how can I make Claude Cowork work for my firm and my needs?
Yeah, fair. So that's been the most useful thing probably, right, as a document generation stuff.
I think so. And then of course the medical record summary that you've helped us create, because we take that summary that's HIPAA compliant and then we can upload that to Claude because it won't contain all this protected health information or dates of birth. It'll allow us to throw that in what we call our Stowers demand package.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Did you want to start sharing your screen maybe?
Yeah. So maybe we can start by showing folks the medical records dashboard that you created for us.
Okay. Yeah. You want to start there?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then as you show that, then I can basically just explain it really quickly.
Sure. So you created this custom dashboard for us. And there's this option to click a new processing job. And then what we were looking for was there's a specific part of our demand letters that summarizes the injuries and the medical treatment. And so, there's an option to create a demand, but what I liked is that we're able to upload, up to 50 files here and really give a chronology. It can audit the medical records for CPT codes. It can talk about the dates of service, what the client complained of, the diagnosis, the recommendations, in a way that's digestible in a demand so that you can actually put it in your demand letter.
Yeah.
So what I would do is click choose records here. And we took those mock medical records for purposes of today. And we can upload these here. It'll give you that ready status and you click upload records. And then we click start processing. And now the AI is running.
Yeah, there we go. And then in the background, you can get HIPAA compliant, or HIPAA compliance to build your own app is a lot cheaper than getting the enterprise version of Claude, basically, right?
Right.
So enterprise version of Claude obviously is sort of looking for enterprises, right?
Sure.
For bigger companies. But if you want to build your own app, you can go to AWS, something called Bedrock, which is on Amazon. It's the way that Amazon hosts AI models on their server called Bedrock. And you can go there and you can get a BAA signed there on Bedrock. You can get your HIPAA compliance there through Bedrock. And then you can build your own app and then you can process information there through that app with your BAA and your HIPAA compliance that way, which is basically what we did for them.
And so usually this takes just a couple minutes. Obviously, upload more files. But what I like to do is while this is running, I'm going to go into Claude and start, working on the actual demand, or my system will start that draft.
What's your best advice for creating skills like these, getting Claude to produce good outputs? And what's your best advice, would you say?
Well, I think you got to figure out what's giving you the most of a time suck, in your practice, right? Filing lawsuits that are oftentimes, in a motor vehicle accident or a trucking case, we're going to use old templates again and again and again.
Yeah.
Um, but I tried to identify, you know, the, the areas where our team was getting stuck, on the initial draft, and I wanted them to be able to get me a draft that was closer to being finalized as opposed to me going in and making substantial edits. Um, and Claude really can learn your voice. He can learn, the way that you phrase certain things, like in our demand letters. And so, after I got that output right, I will say that one thing with Claude Cowork is you can actually tell them the spacing you want, the font use. Like I like Century School Book. It's what the Supreme Court uses. I think it looks good, but that's something Claude can do. Um, and then from there, I actually asked Claude to create a skill from that. So you see here at the end, you just ask it at the end, say, can you create a Claude skills out of all this work? And it will ask you whether you want it to be, a step by step, which I recommend, to so that you can actually give it the prompts you want and you can fine tune this.
What
And then,
is the value of a skill over just prompting it every single time?
yeah, so one, the prompts take a while to do.
Yeah.
Um, my understanding is that the skill is like a markdown file,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to run through that analysis first, and if I were to use that skill, I don't have to give it all that context again.
Right.
So it saves you a lot of time, and you can actually, once you have the skill, you can make this skill even better because you can continue to just ask Cowork or ask Claude to make the skill, even more efficient. Maybe the first time around it wasn't what you wanted, but I highly recommend using skills. And so I can show folks kind of some of the skills we've been working on. Even my assistants have come up with some. If I go to new project, you can use the / commands. And so, we have an 18-wheeler petition. We have, in our county, in Bexar County in San Antonio, it's quite a bit of documents to get an agreed scheduling order in place, that docket control order. And so now I can just upload the defendant's answer in my petition. And within about 10 minutes, I can have, an agreed motion for entry of a DCO and a notice of hearing, and also a draft of the docket control order, so that when the defendant's answer in the case, I ask them for their trial date availability. Then I ask Cowork through this skill to just create one for me. Obviously, I can edit it, fine tune the deadlines in there, but it's a lot faster than asking for me starting from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And there are obviously some other ones we've used in here too. We don't use the medical review one. I think that was another attorney that shared that, but you know, we have a lot of different workflows that just make it so much easier.
And what's been your experience in rolling Claude out to your team, or sort of getting your team to use Claude, or helping them learn how to adopt it?
Yeah. So at first, everyone was a little bit, like, whoa, this is a new thing, right? They're obviously a little bit uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
But when I show them how fast, they were able to generate documents, now I'm getting, 12 to 15 documents a day to review from my assistants, because they're able to, just crush these tasks, right? And so they love it, and they're finding ways as part of their paralegal duties it's just making their job that much easier.
Yeah. And how many documents would you say you were getting before it's around on a daily basis?
It would depend. I mean, sometimes we'd see around 5 to 7 a day.
Okay. Cool. Those medical records might be done now.
Yeah, I think so, man. So let me share this with everyone. And so now it'll say ready for review. I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention here about that process.
It walks through the whole process. Obviously, depending on the size of the packet, it may take longer. But it goes through and it'll sort of break the packet down into manageable chunks that it can loop over and summarize and all that kind of stuff.
So this took about 5 minutes, which is great.
Yeah.
And so then I'll click review and export. This is obviously a fake case. We're not using any real clients' medical records. You can put your notes in there if you want for your team members. I think you made it so where we can see past jobs, which is great.
Yeah.
And then, typically we'll say save final document and confirm that this output is ready. And so here below, you made it great for us to be able to just copy and paste this section here, right? So I can probably zoom in a little bit for folks, but and for context, I can actually probably pull up a actual demand section. So let me find one. Yeah, so here's actually an example what we did here, Masai. So do you want me to show the skill, just like the markdown file, or do you want me to show you kind of like an actual demand that we created?
You can. I mean, you can do either or even both might be useful.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and just show folks kind of what we did with this case. What we do is while this is running, our team is creating the demand package. And what I do again is you want to have that local folder on your desktop with the documents like the petition, the photographs of the wreck. You're going to want the crash report if there's one. You're going to want to have, like, for example, we have clients fill out, a damages checklist to kind of talk about their non-economic damages. If we have before and after witnesses that we've got some interviews with, we'll want to have that in there as well. You can just have it in a Word document. You can just put it in your desktop folder. And then you use the / command for a Stowers demand. And so now you can see its thought process, right? It's reviewing everything for this client's case. It's reading the crash report, the petition to build the liability sections. And I also put in there, like the Texas rules of the road, the driver's handbook, the different offenses that, a driver who's negligent, for violated from the Texas Transportation Code. And so from there, it reads all that information and then it leaves a section blank for the medical summary, right? Because again, you can't put your medical records in, a max plan for Claude cowork, right? Also, I put the adjuster's name in there as well because we want to have, who the letter is going to be addressed to. But here's how it looks, right? Obviously this stuff we fill in, but it's very good, right? It puts it on our letterhead. It describes the collision. I mean, it goes through the crash photographs, right? It even screenshots them in there. I mean, and they're even spaced, right? There's that liability section there. It actually cites the transportation code.
Yeah. What was it like when you first saw this sort of output from Claude?
Man, I was just like, wow, how have we not been using this, since its creation? This is a form Stowers demand that we have. It talks about who may testify in the case. This is a standard MVA. It goes through the causation, right? But then here you'll see that at some point we actually went in and I won't show this for purposes of, of privacy here, but we actually took that medical summary, right? That we use from our medical summary that you created through Versal, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that I was able to upload that here, that injuries and summary of treatment document. So then I threw that into that local folder, and then Claude was able to read that and then input that in the demand.
Yeah.
Right. And so now it has the full context, right? And I'll go back to this to kind of skip towards the end here, right? But it goes through all of her treatment, right? And now, obviously, there's going to be certain things that you're going to have to make manual edits to. But imagine being able to create 5 of these a day.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe your assistant or you're able only to get through 2 to 3 or maybe 1 or 2.
What does that mean for the firm at large? Does it mean you guys can take on more cases or get through cases more quickly, or what's the?
Yeah, I mean, we're a litigation firm, so we don't get a lot of cases that come directly to us unless it's former clients. but it's opened up the possibility for us to be able to handle, more pre-litigation, right? Because, even litigation cases too. I mean, if I have these tools at our disposal, I'm able to move the case quicker,
Yeah.
right? If I can cut down the time it takes for us to summarize this client's medical, go through it. I mean, it'll create a summary first, so I actually get to review that, and then I go through the records too, just to be sure nothing was missed. But being able to package up a demand letter so much faster allows us to resolve cases quicker, which means that for our referral partners, we've got more bandwidth to take on more cases.
Yeah. Very cool.
So 100%. And so I'm trying to think what else, we could talk about
I mean,
co-work, but I think the skills are 100% something that lawyers need to look into and use, because they're going to find that there's just so many different workflows that you can fine tune.
yeah.
Another thing we recently did was we have a defense doctor's deposition coming up, and he's very active on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you can use the Claude Co-work Chrome extension.
Yeah.
And, I wanted to be sure that when I had all his previous deposition transcripts and I knew sort of how he testifies to certain causation arguments or the standard of care, I was able to have Claude go through his YouTube channel,
Yeah.
actually pull the timestamps of each YouTube video to see if it was consistent with what he authored in his report in the case.
Yeah.
Now, this guy obviously had someone screening his YouTube stuff, but we did find some stuff that was inconsistent. And so during the deposition, I've got the YouTube channel with the timestamps and the transcript, and that becomes an exhibit in the case. Say, well, doctor, listen, you're very active on YouTube, right? Yeah, I am. Okay. In fact, in this video, you said that a patient should see a orthopedic surgeon at this point with their treatment, right? That's what you said on YouTube, right? That's inconsistent with what you've offered in your report.
Right.
And it's just, that is ways I think that we as lawyers can really move the needle, to where if I had to try to go through all those YouTube videos with a fine-tooth comb and trying to find a gotcha moment, I'm not gonna have that kind of time, right? So it just cuts the amount of time down for us to prepare for these depositions.
Yeah. What do you think? How is it just, do you think it possible to compete with firms? Like, say you're a firm that's using this, let's say your peers that are not using these tools, you think it just becomes really difficult to compete, or what do you think sort of happens down there?
I think so, man. I think there's an element of, I think to be an effective litigator and to be an effective lawyer, you have to constantly try to learn new skills.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that if you're not using co-work that you're not going to still maintain a competitive edge, but I think if you have these tools and you're already a hard worker and you're willing to go the extra mile for your clients and prepare your cases for trial, co-work's just another weapon in your arsenal, right? It's able to help you to really effectively prepare, which preparation is everything in our business. So I think that's where co-work really just provides another edge for us.
Huge. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for walking us through the skills, the medical record stuff. Do you have any final closing thoughts or sentiments at all, or?
No, man, I really appreciate everything you did for our firm. I highly recommend Masai. His services. He really spent the time with us to figure out what it is that we needed, and it's kind of a journey to where I think once I started learning the technology more, I came to you with more targeted questions on like, hey, Masai, can I have co-work do this?
Yeah.
And it's always probably interesting for you too to be like, oh, I didn't realize that was something that you guys even needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, man, it's been great, and I think we're only going to continue to grow in our AI journey, and hopefully be able to service more clients and to close cases quicker, right?
Awesome. Well, very cool. Thanks again for being on here.
All right, thanks, Masai. I appreciate it, man.